I hope my computer is up to this, but if it's not, I might have to switch computers. Are you ready, Lakshmi?
Yes, which Lakshmi is it? Is it Lakshmi B?
That's you, Lakshmi.
Okay.
I've just met the other Lakshmi. Are you seeing the screen or not?
Yes, see. Yes.
Hoot.
Of course it has to be a Kahoot, right?
I actually thought Mick was going to say test.
Well, it is a test, isn't it?
It's a quiz for all of us.
Right, it's called assessing prior learning is what I'm calling it technically. So how many people? We have 34 people already. Wow, okay, good. So we'll get started in a second. Welcome to everybody and welcome to the, we have a few visitors from outside of KC, so welcome to all of you as well. Can you hear me? I should also mention I have this group of brave people, Megha, Hans, Aishu, Ruth, Preeti Pant, Raji, Reena, Huma, Nandini, and Sunny. When I checked last night, all told me they don't mind being active participants. Lakshmi, yes, you had not yet finished. You had not yet. I'm putting you on there as well.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So these are people that I might call on. Shall we try it? Where are we? Where are we? Okay. So it's now 4:01, right? So I guess I should get started because fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure which, I have a lot of material. So we might not get it finished in an hour. So how are we doing? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Can somebody please confirm that I'm audible? And
Mr. Mick, you're up.
Yes.
Can you see the slide deck?
Yep, we can see.
Great. Who is that?
Hans.
Hans?
Yep.
Oh, you're on my list. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's just start. Let's just make sure everybody who is brave, so the people whose name are on this list, okay? Can you please turn on your cameras and say hi? This list right here. Okay, great.
Mick, Sunny isn't there. There was a message saying that he had to leave for some emergency.
Okay, that's fine. We have more than 5 brave volunteers. Let's just try this, make sure it's going okay. Turn on your cameras, please. All right. Oh, hi, Hans. Hi, Huma. Okay, are you with me? Repeat after me. Phonics is fun.
Phonics is fun.
Okay, you're supposed to have the mute off. I mean, you're supposed to. This is so nice. It's a little bit harder than it is in kindergarten. Very good. Let's try it one more time, okay?
It's fun.
Repeat after me.
Fun.
Camera on too if you're an active person. Phonics is fun.
Phonics is fun.
Phonics is fun.
Phonics is fun.
It's fun.
Fun is phonics. Okay, I got a few of you with that one. You notice how I slipped in the alliteration and the near rhyming? Okay, so let's just start with today's object. Thanks for all of you who, I'm going to call on you occasionally, those of you who volunteered to be the inner circle, the active participants. I'll just go through real quickly today's objectives, and then we'll get to the Kahoot. Well, one of the most important objectives for today is to learn that phonics is fun, and it really is. But also we want to learn about the science of reading, including the reading wars. Is reading difficult or is it easy and natural? We want to learn about the simple model of reading and about the 5 components of reading. And especially we're focused, of course, on how to teach reading. We may want to answer some of these questions. What are the reading wars and are they important? What is the simple model of reading? What do skilled readers do? That's really important. Of course, what is the best way to teach reading? I think questions 5 and 6, the answers are pretty clear. How important is the teaching of reading? Very important. Are teachers properly taught how to teach reading? Unfortunately, the answer to that question is usually no. And that's one of the purposes of today's workshop, okay? So why don't we just do what we normally do and welcome everybody with a little bit of, let's try a Kahoot, okay? Are we ready to go? So I'm going to give you a brief quiz. It's 12 questions long, and it's going to assess your prior knowledge on the science of reading. So I'll wait for players. Once I get, I'd say 20 or 25 players in, we'll go ahead and get started. It should take us only about 10 minutes. I hope I'm audible. I'm not seeing the chat box, so if any chats come up in the chat box or the YouTube, you'll have to let me know, Preet or Sandhya. Oh, Ruth is in. We have one in. Great. There's Fabulous Octopus. Pravina, by the way, is one of the betting favorites. I can explain that later. One of the odds makers' favorites, Pravina and Nandini. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you. Hi, Kavita.
Hi, Mick. Hello, Mick.
Good to see you, Prashant. And SM, whoever you are.
Hi, Mick.
That's Sunny, okay.
No, that's me, Sudha.
Oh, Sudha. Hi, Sudha.
Hi.
I'll wait for 3 or 4 more. Don't be shy. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Maitali. Nice to see you guys.
Hi, Mick.
Hi, Vidya.
Hello, Mick.
Hi, Janine. Good to see
Hi,
you.
Mick. I don't know how to get onto this Kahoot because I've never done it before. Can someone please help me?
You just go to
Yeah, me too.
that website, kahoot.it, at top, www.kahoot.it, and you type in that code, 495-8275. Crystal, Mira, and Gautami have joined us. That's good.
Would
give
suggest
Nandini
you
a
use
second.
a different. You would.
You use
I
a
would
phone, yeah.
suggest you-
Sorry,
phone,
I
yeah.
should have told you. Normally you use your phone or a different device.
Oh, okay.
Although it can actually, yeah, normally use your phone or a different device.
Oh, okay. My phone.
It's okay, you can just watch along if you like, Nandini.
Yeah, I'll try to get in. Let me see.
Okay, 25 we've got, shall we start? Why not? By the way, every question, there's some kind of reason or some kind of thought to the question, which we may discuss later. All right, let's go. Most people got that right, or at least the plurality got it right. Human beings are the only species that reads. That's correct. The other things are myths, and they're myths that sometimes have a negative impact on the teaching of reading. Okay, next, which of the following statements is, oh, Gautami on top, very good. Which of the following statements is false? How a child learns to read is determined by the child's learning style. We're going to talk about that today. That is a myth. That is false, and it causes a lot of problems. Essentially, the process of learning to read is the same for every child. Aha, let's see what's going on next. Maitali, very good. 2 answers correct. Is it important to teach punctuation? Very good. That was kind of an easy question. Absolutely. We do need to teach punctuation so that readers can gain fluency. A little movement on the scoreboard there. Interesting to see. How many phonemes are there in the English language? Very good. What a smart class we have. About 44. That's absolutely right. Phonemes, of course, are the most simple sound in the language. Which group of laypersons has contributed greatly to our understanding of reading? The parents of children with dyslexia have made an enormous contribution to our understanding of reading. They are passionate and they have a lot to say, and they are a very important part of this conversation. And I will probably have more to say about that later. No, school principals is not the right answer. Probably have done more harm than good. Okay, next. Mega's on top now. Very good, Mega. I'm glad to see the first grade teachers, the pre-primary teachers, the librarians. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. That's great news. And welcome to all those like Hans who teach older kids and may not be aware of this stuff. I'm really impressed that you want to learn. Absolutely, that's not a myth. Phonics is an essential part of a reading program. The others are myths, and believe it, it's surprising to me, but some of them are pretty widely believed. All right, so we're halfway through, and Kavita has 4 correct answers in a row. Very good, Kavita. She's on fire. Yes, that's the correct answer. The other things may be kind of true, but the reason why Scarborough's rope, which is a very famous visual metaphor for reading that has been backed up by research, is used is because of the intertwined nature of the different components of reading. Very good to 11 of you. Very happy to see so many teachers of the right age group up there. What is the ultimate goal when learning how to read? Very good. I have to say, this is a well-framed Kahoot question to those of you who construct Kahoot. Short question, short answers, everybody answer. Reading comprehension. Those other things are all nice, but when we're setting up a reading program and trying to teach reading, our goal is reading comprehension. Mega, very good. Prashant, nice to see you on the board. Little bit of gender equity there. Okay. Why do we use tapping and clapping when teaching? Reading. Yeah, all those things are important, absolutely important, and all of the above is the best answer there. Okay. Rena, very good, Rena. One of our active participants. Very quick. Next, we've got 3 questions left. Why do some teachers use nonsense words such as fin? Yes, yes. The reason we use nonsense words is to check that kids know how to decode, that they understand the sound or the it sound, etc. Very good. We've had quite a few changes in the lead here, and I think the toughest 2 questions are coming, but I may be wrong. Let's see. Ooh, that was a tough question. The schwa is the unstressed vowel sound, oftentimes appearing in the middle of a word. It's important for many reasons. We may discuss that later. I have a feeling that's going to change the leaderboard a little bit. Not much. Everybody found that to be a difficult question. But Rena is on fire. With how many questions in a row? 4 in a row, and she's got more than 6,000 points. O Rome, 'tis thine alone with awful sway to rule mankind. What does sway mean? Hans, I expect you to get this one. Very good. Power. That question, by the way, came off a GRE test for English literature, and I put it in just to remind everyone that ultimately what we're trying to do is get kids to comprehend what they read. Reading comprehension is the goal. All right, let's see how we turned out here. Very well done to everybody who participated. I know it wasn't easy. Pravina, 3rd place. Prashant, 2nd place. And Rena, who's a trained special educator, in 1st place. Mega and Veronica as well. It does not surprise me to see 1st grade, 2nd grade teachers and inclusive educators doing so well. That's a great sign for our school, and that's good for me to know as well. congratulations to everybody. Thanks for participating. I hope it was fun. I know those questions were probably tough for some of you, but let's just check real quickly. I'm going to just spin the wheel once just for fun, and whoever it lands on, I want you to tell me how you found that quiz, and is there any particular question you would like me to explain? Raji, are you there? We have a winner. Maybe she couldn't make it. I haven't seen Raji, and she would normally say hi. Okay, well, we'll get off of that one. Any questions? Let me check the chat box. Any questions coming in, Preet? All right, I'm gonna look at the chat box. Anything you want me to explain? Easy, said Mega. Well done, Mega. That's good. Okay, 44 is absolutely the correct answer for number of phonemes. At least that's what the experts have kind of settled on. It's not precise. It's not an exact science, but it's about 44. Right. Okay, so let's go on. And let me just say a few more things about you. And first about me. I'm just going to, are you seeing my slides now?
Yes, Mick.
Yes.
Yes, Mick.
I'll just say a little bit. I'm not going to talk too much about me, but I'm going to make the, I'm going to just put a couple of disclaimers up. First of all, to me, the science of reading is so important, and I've been thinking about it a lot for the past couple of years. I heard a radio report on NPR in the United States where they talked about how many teachers don't understand how to teach reading and how much harm this is doing to kids. And I started thinking about my own education. And honestly, I think that I'd really like to thank the teachers at Old Greenwich Elementary School who taught me how to read. And I think it's one of the most important things I've ever learned. And it's completely opened up a world of opportunity for me, including being here, traveling, seeing so much of the world, etc. My job, my interesting career path. And I never really thought too much about it growing up. But now I realize how much being a skilled reader has changed my life. And part of it is because on my journey, I've encountered people who've had difficulties reading because they were never taught properly how to read. And I know how painful it is for some of them, or at least they've explained that to me. I don't know it because I have not been through it myself. So, this is something that I feel very strongly about. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you this. I know how to point you to the experts, okay? And maybe that's one thing I'd really like you to take out of today is some motivation to learn more about this and to go on and find the experts, okay? Here's how you guys ranked yourself, at least of last night. One person who was, I think, on that platform, told us that she was advanced, but everybody else, you kind of were evenly split between levels 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to try to make this pretty simple, but as I saw, especially from Mega calling it easy from that Kahoot quiz, there is a substantial amount of prior knowledge amongst you, and I'm happy to know that. And of course, that doesn't surprise me because many of you, or all of you really, teach reading. And this is kind of what I see as level 2, level 3, level 4. So intermediate would mean that you're aware of the simple view of reading. Advanced would mean you can describe the Fab Five or the big 6 components of reading, and you can help us design an excellent reading program for a school. So my goal today is for everybody to take a big step towards that next level, okay? By the way, Sonia or Lata or somebody, please tell me if any comments come through in the chat box. So
Sure.
a beautiful book, or if there are any questions, there's a beautiful book by Marilyn Jager Adams from about 30 years ago. She talks about this analogy, a car engine being like the mechanics of reading. Today, we're going to focus on the mechanics of reading. The print is like the fuel, the print goes into the reader, and then the engine gets turning. The fuel gives you the energy, but the engine gets turning, and the different parts have to be well maintained and well oiled in order for the reader to read fluently and to be a skilled reader and to have reading comprehension. So today we're going to talk a bit about the engine parts. And first of all, first and foremost, we have to understand the simple view of reading and the simple model of reading. What is reading? Reading is a combination of two things. It's language comprehension and decoding. Kids come to school with some language comprehension. They know some language, then they're taught decoding. These two things multiplied together give us reading comprehension. And that's what we're after. So in many ways, both parts, the language comprehension and the decoding, are the responsibility of both the parents and the school. But one thing we see is that parents and schools working together make a much more effective reading program. And often the kids will have the language comprehension before they come to school because their parents' home culture has emphasized language. And then it's the job of the school to add the decoding so that the kid becomes the skilled reader who knows how to comprehend what she or he is reading. One of the best visual metaphors for this, and this is where we always start when we're talking about the science of reading, is called Scarborough's reading rope. It was designed about 20 years ago by a psychologist named Hollis Scarborough, and she was trying to explain reading to parents and teachers, and she needed a teacher's aid, a visual aid to try to explain this. So in the red, we have the components of language comprehension. In the blue, we have the components of word recognition. That's the word she uses, but nowadays we say decoding more. Decoding is an important part of it. The word recognition and the language comprehension come together, and that's what turns kids into a skilled reader or into skilled readers, okay? So that's one of the most important objectives for today. I think it's a good time to pause and just say, do we have any questions? I'm going to say three most important takeaways, the three things that I absolutely want you to learn today. First, reading is language comprehension times decoding. Second, the 5 components of reading, which we're going to get into in a second, are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And third, systematic phonics instruction is essential to any reading program. And a good school is going to have a systematic phonics program. All right, let me pause real quick and see if there are any questions. Any questions? You can use the chat box. You can raise a hand. You can speak up. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Is it clear? Or are you just bored and falling asleep?
No, it's fairly clear so far. I think the questions will come in a little while.
I'm going to get a question right now. Let's see. Okay, so now, just so everybody knows, I'm going to put the Jamboard. So we have a Jamboard open. I think most of you know what a Jamboard is. Do I have the Jamboard open or not? Can you do me a favor, Sandhya, and put the Jamboard into the chat box? Let me spin one time and get you guys to ask one question. All right. Who's going to be the lucky person now? Huma.
Hi.
Okay. Now, do you see the Jamboard, or should let me open it for you? Let me try to open it.
I'll open it. 1 second.
I can do it.
Okay.
The link in the chat box.
Okay, so here we have a whole bunch of questions, which you might want to ask. Huma, I'm really happy to have you there asking the question because I know you are such a skilled and talented teacher of reading. At this time, Huma, I want you to ask me one question. It can be a question of your own, or it could be a question off the Jamboard.
This is nice. Okay, Mick. If a principal walks into a classroom hoping to see an excellent reading class, what is he or she looking for?
Great. Okay, good question. I think you asked the right
Good one, Homa.
Okay, great question. So when I walk into it, and I'm not just telling you my personal opinions, I'm telling you what the experts say, okay? When I walk into a first grade classroom or a second grade classroom, and it's a reading time, it's a reading lesson, what am I looking for? Okay, first of all, I'm looking for language, lots of language, okay? And I'm looking for kids who are active using language. So what I'm looking for is lots of conversation. I'm looking for multimodal ways of learning and expressing themselves through language. So I'm looking for kids singing, clapping, talking, learning, reading out loud. And I'm also looking for everybody being involved. And I'm looking for the teacher being a guiding instructor who is guiding the conversation, but not necessarily dominating the conversation. Does that make sense, Huma? Typically, depending on whether it's the beginning of the lesson, the middle of the lesson, or the end of the lesson, I'm going to see some kids working in groups. And probably there's going to be some differentiation according to the reading levels. Am I making sense? Do you want to follow up on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you said, teacher being involved and being a guide rather than being the dominating the lesson, I think, yeah, that is something, I always feel, I keep it in back of my mind when we are doing any kind of, reading or in the class.
And I can tell you a couple other things that are important as well, Huma. What I don't want to see, okay? You mentioned one of them, the teacher, the only person talking, right? I want to see the kids learning, and I want to see active evidence that their kids are learning. But I also don't want to see humiliation, okay? And that's one of the most important things, because what we're finding, and Huma, this is what I want to put out to all of you. My goal is for every kid at KC High to become a skilled reader, every single one. And for every kid to become a skilled reader, we need to make sure that we're doing enough for the kids who need help. And we have to do it in a constructive way that does not humiliate them. It might happen in class, it might happen outside of class, it might happen at home. It will probably happen in all of those places. And there has to be teamwork to make sure that those kids are learning what they need to learn in order to become skilled readers. So when I walk into a classroom, first of all, one thing about, and I think you guys know this about me, I'll already have in my mind some sort of diagnostic, some sort of assessment, some sort of data about which kids in that class might need help in reading. And I'm going to be looking particularly to make sure that that kid is getting what he or she needs in terms of guided instruction. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? Shall we move on?
Mr. Mick, Crystal
Yeah, go ahead.
with the hands.
Who's that?
Crystal?
Hi, Crystal. How are you?
I'm good. So I have a question. The way you explained it, it sounds like it would work in a primary class. When you come up to middle and high, getting them to read out loud is a little difficult.
Right.
And picking out readers and just telling, okay, why don't you read this? They're not very comfortable in doing that. So what would you look for in a middle and high school class?
Right. Okay, so I'm really talking today about teaching reading, okay? And so I am more focused on primary and particularly the grades KG through grade 2 and even pre-primary, okay? I'm looking for, so when I'm walking into a middle school class, it's probably not teaching reading. And one important point is there will be some kids who struggle with reading in middle school. And I hope there is a plan for those kids. And that will probably be outside of the English period, right? But I hope also that the teacher is sensitive to those kids, because I'm certainly not looking for kids out reading out loud and all of that. When we're talking about middle school, what I'm looking for more is every kid being engaged, the lesson being well planned, every kid knowing what they're doing, and the teacher having made it clear to every kid what she or he is supposed to be doing. So I'm looking for some kind of active learning, and that the activities have been well planned and well designed by the teacher or the team of teachers in order to maximize the learning of all the kids in classes. You know, a lot of principals talk about this, Crystal, and we all say the same thing. When you walk into a classroom and the learning is happening, you can just feel it, because kids are engaged, they're talking to each other, they know what they're doing, they're on task. And with middle school kids, oftentimes I will ask them, what are you doing? And that's the best measure, because if the learning activities have been well designed, the kids will tell me exactly what they're doing, exactly what they're learning, what are the learning objectives, what are they trying to accomplish? And then I realize, without even talking to the teacher, this teacher is doing a great job. Does that make sense, Crystal?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Anything you'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay. All right. Is Malcolm still with us? You still there, Malcolm? I think he had to leave. Oh, well. I used to walk into Malcolm's class when he was teaching science 20 years ago, and his classes were brilliant. And he really didn't do much because he had done all the work before the class, and he had planned the class brilliantly. And he was one that was notorious for when kids came up and asked him a question like, how do I do this? He would say back to them, how do you think you do it, right? So he didn't do much in class. Poor Malcolm, I'm talking about him. He left our meeting. Okay, so where are we? Let's just get on to these 5 essential components because they are critical. I'm going to skip the reading wars for now because we're kind of running out of time, and they're not that important. The reading wars, I don't think we really have to spend too much attention to them. What we need to do is to make sure that we're teaching reading properly and that we understand the importance of phonics and that we're teaching phonics to every kid who needs to learn it, okay? Is reading natural? No, and this is a critical point. My brother likes to use the analogy of swimming. He says, just surrounding a kid with a bunch of books and assuming the kid is going to read is like throwing a kid into the deep end and assuming he's going to swim. It's dangerous. I prefer the analogy of a Rubik's Cube because when you think about what reading is, it's a highly complex and technical skill, and you need to learn the parts of it. So what are those parts? Reading is technical. All these little methods and techniques that you need to learn, particularly the phonics of matching sounds to letters, mapping letters to sounds. That is a highly technical skill. So let's go through these 5 areas. Oops, I put another good time to pause. All right. I'll skip that one. What works? Relentless guided instruction is what works. We need a good phonics program. What are the 5 areas? That must be in there somewhere. Where is it on my? Oops. Okay, I'm going to do something real quick here, and I'm going to ask the 6 people that I did real quickly. Sorry, I'm kind of confused here. Who was that? Rena, Huma, can you form a breakout room?
Yeah, sure.
And invite Mega, Rena, Ruth, Nandini, and I think it was another grade 1 or grade 2 teacher.
I was
Who am I
me.
forgetting?
Issue.
Yeah, I should. Can you guys
Yeah,
go
I should,
and
yeah,
do that little assignment I gave you and come back in 5 minutes?
Yeah, done.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
All right, let me get to these 5. Okay, so anyway, there's lots of resources available. Somehow I didn't have this slide that I really wanted, but let me just find it. It's easy to find on the internet. So let me try this. Reading Rockets, readingrockets.org. And I'm just going to write Fab 5, but let's see how that turns out. The 5 essentials, okay? The 5 essentials of reading instruction. Here they are. Are you seeing my my window? Yes?
Yes.
Number 1 is
Yes.
phonemic awareness, okay? Kids need to learn about sounds. They need to understand sounds. Therefore, we have lots of activities like substitution activities, deletion activities, etc. This is where the tapping and the clapping comes in. Kids need to learn about sounds. Phonemic awareness you can do in the dark. There's no letters involved. We have lots of rhyming. All those things are important. How many phonemes in a word? Phonemic awareness is the first part of a reading program. The second part is called phonics. Kids need to be able to map and to match sounds to letters. More technically, they need to be able to map graphemes to phonemes. They need to understand what each grapheme means. For example, the B grapheme makes the b sound, okay? By the way, be clear to say try not to say That extra vowel sound is called a schwa, and when you use them as a teacher, they creep into kids' spellings, okay? So anyway, phonemic awareness, number 1. Phonics is number 2. Vocabulary is number 3. Vocabulary is extremely important in reading. Kids who start with a bigger vocabulary are going to become better readers than kids who start with a smaller vocabulary. The vocabulary just spirals up. The better reader you become, the more vocabulary you have. The more vocabulary you have, the better reader you become. So explicitly teaching vocabulary is a very, very important part of a reading program. Fluency. Fluency is next, including oral reading skills. It's very important that kids learn how to read fluently, okay? That's one reason why it's important to teach them punctuation, and it's important to teach them sight words. Sight words, there's a lot of confusion about sight words. I might take some time to talk about them a little bit later, but what we're really trying to do in order to build up to reading comprehension is get kids to read fluently, okay? And again, the objective in the end is reading comprehension. And reading comprehension, to get back to your question, Crystal, as we go from lower primary, grades 1 and 2, to upper primary, grades 3, 4, and 5, and then into middle school, I'm expecting to see a lot of explicit teaching of reading comprehension and reading comprehension strategies, okay? And an important point that I know you've been a part of in the past, Crystal, a really important part is assessing kids' reading comprehension so we can identify which kids need help and give them some strategies and some tips and an individualized learning plan to help those kids who need help with their reading comprehension. So again, those are the big five. Nowadays, some people call it 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. I can explain that if you want me to. But what I really wanted for today is to make sure that everybody understood those big five, okay? Now, let me just pause and ask if there are any questions before I get back to this. Let's look. Any questions in the chat box? Sangeeta's commenting on a schwa. That's good. Question? Lata, any questions?
No, Mick.
Okay, let me get back.
Mick, thanks for the question. We have one person. We have one person raising hands here.
Preeti, yes.
Yes, so when we talk about the big five, does reading and writing have to go together?
Well, reading, so in essence, all 4 components of language are connected to each other, right? But there is an order, and that order clearly is first you understand, first you learn language from your mother speaking to you. As an infant, you learn your language first, then you talk and you speak. Then once you get to school, you learn how to read, and then you learn how to write. So reading and parts of the reading big five, such as the phonemic awareness, might not involve writing. So the first part of understanding sounds, if you look at phonemic awareness exercises, they don't involve writing at all. The part that involves learning sounds is very much audio. It's about listening and learning about sounds and breaking up words into their component sounds and then reassembling them and putting them back together. So there are parts of the reading process that are not directly connected to writing. Of course, as you begin to understand phonics and begin to understand the mapping of the graphemes to the phonemes, then you have to begin to understand the letters. And that's when normally we start to get kids to write, although there are a lot of experts who think we probably push writing a little bit too soon and that we should make sure they know how to read first. Anybody else like to comment on that?
May I
Please,
say
Sangeeta.
something? Yeah. So we have seen that in pre-primary, especially in flighty frogs, there are some like so-called gifted reader, sight reader. I mean, when they come to the class, already they started reading. So basically, what we saw till the time we introduced the jolly phonics, like breaking up the sounds, like k, at, cat, like that, they are more prone to write as the capital letters, the uppercase, and they will say it as a CAT. So that time it was kind of happening just for the sake of writing or reading, they are doing it. But when they are introduced to the jolly phonics, the breaking up of the letters, the phonemes and phonological awareness is created, they are becoming actually a fluent learner, reader. I mean, and we have seen in this pandemic, this jolly phonic worked beautifully, like where they started with the letter sound and now they're able to read the sentences, and in a very scientific and slow but steady manner.
Fantastic, Sangeeta. I'm so happy to hear that. And I can't tell you how impressed I am by the entire pre-primary and lower primary group of teachers, because it cannot be easy, because most of them have their parents sitting right next to them, and that cannot be easy. But universally, I have heard from the KC parents over the past 12 months, what a great job you guys are doing. And I also hear from them all the time, I had no idea, Mick. I had no idea it was so complicated. What's a digraph? What's a diphthong? So this scientific approach that you guys are taking is really working, and I'd like to compliment you on it. Just because we're doing a good job doesn't mean we can't do better. And that's one of the purposes of the workshop today. So I think how can we get better? It's really important to build up a knowledge base amongst the teachers and the parents about exactly what reading is and how to teach it. Very good, Sangeeta. I'm so happy to hear that, okay? So now I'm wondering if our breakout group is back. Are you guys back or not? I guess not. Okay, they'll come back. So let me just talk real quickly about what works. What are the characteristics of a successful reading program? And, you know, this is a slide with a lot of information. I'm going to let you look at it real quickly. There's one piece of information that's really, really important here. Somebody guess in the chat box which piece of information is so important. Remember, our goal is that every kid at KC High is going to become a skilled reader. So what piece of information is so important here? Anything in the chat box, Lata, Sanya?
Maithili, Rajal, Nancy, they all say multimodal. Kavita says systematic. Han says explicit.
Okay, great. They're all important.
He says multimodal.
They're all important. Very good.
Prashant
This
says
is the one thing I want to emphasize the most. This is what we need to figure out. Which kids need help? You know, I know that this scientific approach to reading works. I have friends who work in the States and who work at so-called low performing schools and schools where a lot of Title I kids and schools where kids are poor and they have a lot of problems in their background and their parents don't read to them when they're young. And I've seen schools go from 30% to 90% reading at grade level by implementing the science of reading. Now, we're a school that's very lucky because most of our kids are at grade level or above grade level. But if we are going to get every kid to become a skilled reader at KC High, then what we need is to identify which kids need help. And those kids need more teacher time, more instruction. And that teacher time might be in the classroom, it might be outside of the classroom, it might be with the help of the support services team, it might be through an individualized learning plan, it might involve conferences with parents, it might involve some Saturdays or some external help, etc. But one of the things we need to do is if we're going to make sure that every kid is a good reader, then we need to determine from an early age which kids need help. Because I know Mira's in this room, and Mira and I taught 11th graders last year, and we can see which kids never really learned to be good readers. And by 11th grade, it becomes very, 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 very difficult to make up that gap. So that's why we need to identify from a young age which kids need help and to make sure that those kids get the help they need. All right, let me see. Huma, are you guys back yet? But absolutely, these things are all, you're absolutely right. It's important for us to have a systematic program, for us to explicitly teach what we're teaching. Don't assume they're going to get it. Don't make it implicit. Multimodal, we've already talked about. Intensive, of course, those things I've talked about. Let me see. Homer, you guys back?
So Mick, last year when we
Still not back. Are you guys back?
I don't think so.
No, Mick, they're not back.
All right. All right.
We have
Well, they were supposed to do a little.
raised hand here. We have a raised hand here, Crystal.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Crystal.
last year when we did the NGRT program with the kids, that was a good way of identifying which kids needed a reading program, which kids needed help, which kids were already advanced for the level of reading that they were at. Obviously, because of the pandemic, this year we weren't able to do it, but that is something that would be nice if it continues in the following years, because that really identifies and then gives you strategies as to how to teach the kids and what they need to focus on when it comes to reading.
Thank you so much for that, Crystal. And can you please have a conversation with Sandhya about that, because we've identified the person that we want to take that up, and we need to explain exactly that to her, okay?
Okay.
Now, let me just, I see we're running out of time. I knew that was gonna happen. There was a lot more here. Oh, well, that's okay, it happens. I'll send you an exit ticket. I forgot to do that. Let me just do this real quickly. At our Google Classroom, if you go to classroom.google.com, you can add the classroom. Let me show you how to do that. Are you still seeing you're seeing this, right? So I'm going to go to classroom.google.com. Many of you are already in this class because there's no point in us making loads and loads of classes. So I just added a new topic to the here it is, KCH Raw. That means, it means research in academic writing, but we could call it reading in academic writing. So there's the class. If you go to classroom.google.com, you could add that class, and then you'll see that I have added some resources there. And there are loads and loads of resources. Luckily, because of parents of kids with dyslexia and having seen the pain their kids went through, they insist on making loads and loads of resources free and available. So there's all kinds at every level, there's all kinds of resources there about what you might want to learn if you want to learn more. This particular video coming from Emily Hanford, a journalist, is what got me started, together with this one, Why Aren't Kids Being Taught Reading? And that set me off on a self-learning project where I started reading these books and these white papers and these websites and really getting into it. And now I'm really becoming aware of how important it is for every kid to learn to read and for us to teach reading properly. Okay, we're running out of time. Let's see if, hi, Ruth, you're back.
Yes, we are back.
Okay, let's go through this real quickly and then we'll say goodbye. Here's the idea. We have a parent. Is the parent there, Nandini?
Yes.
And the parent is a KC High parent. I'm not going to say too much more, except the parent's going to come in and ask the teachers about our reading program at KC High. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, I'll turn my mic off and I'll turn myself up, and you guys please, I'll turn off my presentation as well. And you guys please carry it forward, and then we'll wrap up for the day.
So Ruth, it's the same questions, right?
Yes, Nandini, it's the same thing.
Okay, so the first question is, where can I find the scope and sequence for phonemic awareness instruction at KC High? People?
Okay, I think I'll take that question. So phonemic awareness is basically, in the English language, we have about 44 sounds. So, to teach children to associate these sounds with the letters of the alphabet is what we mean by phonemic awareness. And how we go about doing this is through different phonic programs that we use. So we use in the pre-primary and the lower primary something called the Jolly Phonics. And so the scope and sequence of this phonemic awareness would be a part of the curriculum document that that's there on the school website.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, where can I find the scope and sequence for phonics instruction at KC High?
I'll take that one then. The phonics awareness is basically just types of instructions that helps in what Megha said, association of letter to the sounds, and and she also said we follow the Jolly Phonics programs in FF and BB, the lower kindergarten and the upper kindergarten. We divide the stage 1 over of the phonics program over 2 years, and we basically refer to the Cambridge curriculum framework, which is which the teachers have shared on the drive, and it is also available as a framework on the website. And we focus on introducing the letter sounds, how they blend, how they segment, how substitution is done, how syllables are done with claps, what Mick was talking about, through differentiated instructions over differentiated groups.
Thank you, Uma. The next question is, what materials do students use to develop fluency at KC High?
When it comes to fluency, I think reading regularly brings in fluency, and we encourage reading during the session. For any topic that is taught in KC, we ensure that there's a lot of reading materials that is shared based on the age group, and again, differentiated levels based on their ability to read. We ensure that learners read during the session and post-session so that the fluency continues. We check their fluency when they read during the session, and post-session just to get into the habit of reading. And differentiated depends on what strategies the lower primary works. I'm an upper primary teacher, and we ensure that we do give them a lot of materials to read and develop their fluency.
Thanks, Ruth. The next question is, what materials do you use to teach vocabulary, and where can I find a list of the words which will be taught this year?
Sure, I can take that. So I think as mentioned by Huma and Megha, we use the Jolly Phonics program, and apart from that, we also use a lot of word learning strategies. So we pretty much use like strategies to make learners look for prefixes, suffixes, contractions. In the books they're reading, we use a lot of vocabulary building games, give them word pairs to work with. And apart from that, we also continue to build on sight words as well as blends and digraphs, as mentioned by Huma. And as a practice in KC, we have a word wall that is displayed in class, which is pertinent to the topic being explored. So, for example, if in science we're exploring a topic such as materials, all the words related with that are displayed all around the class, sometimes even with images so kids can make connections. And in KC, we have kids from all around the world. So for some of them, English is not the first language. Actually, for all of us, it's not. And so for them, kind of to make those connections and so to make those immediate connections, so we kind of build with scientific vocabulary, mathematical, grammatical. So all those vocabulary that's built with these words. And we try to ensure that they incorporate it. It's not just that it's put there for the week and then they're expected to memorize it and then they move on. It's there for them to incorporate it and until they use it in their writing and in their speaking.
Thanks, Aishwarya. The next question is, what materials and texts do you use to teach reading comprehension, and how are you assessing reading comprehension?
Okay, I'll take that. When it comes to reading comprehension, first we have in primary, we have a reading, a chapter book, which it's for every grade, the teacher identifies a book and we encourage the children to read. And there is a continuity in the reading and they understand how the story is built, how the writer writes. So they help them comprehend as well on the go and understand how the story is, and they can, they can anticipate what the story is going to be. That kind of helps their comprehension. Apart from that, we try and integrate different subjects to have comprehension worksheets. Yes. And so, in DD, right, if you see in a grade, if there is a social topic that's happening, then in LA, a similar comprehension activity is done. So there is we integrate topics to ensure that there is learning and understanding and comprehension happening simultaneously. And for certain grades, for the upper primary, we have even rubrics to identify where the level of the child is to help them to bridge the gap. If there is a gap, if we find that the fluency or the comprehension is not at grade level, we try and differentiate. We work with the student support service and see how we can bridge that gap. So we work as a complete team when it comes to reading and comprehension and fluency.
Thanks, at the pre-primary level, we also have Oxford Reading Tree books, which actually comes with an assessment kit. So the kid can read as many times as she wants, and the teacher will be assessing every time using that kit. and this gives us that the kid is ready. This gives us an idea that the kid can go to the next level.
Thanks.
Fabulous. Yeah.
That was
Now,
the last
are you
one.
convinced?
I'm a convinced Casey parent.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm afraid we've run a few minutes over. I'd really like to say thanks to everybody for your participation. That was a fabulous little role play, and I sprung it upon you with no notice practically. So thanks for doing that. And it's great to see that the reading program is so well organized here. I do think that we can all try to learn a little bit more. Please understand that there is an infinite number of resources available for you, largely put there by parents of kids who have struggled with reading. Please be sensitive to those kids, and please let's focus on making every kid a skilled learner at Casey High. You're doing a fabulous job already. I really appreciate all the efforts today and the conversation. I apologize for running 5 minutes over. I was planning on doing a little exit ticket exercise, but I don't have that. So instead, let's just, as an exit ticket, everybody please put one comment into the chat box. Hopefully it'll either be something important that you've learned or some suggestion for how we can do this better, or some request for what else you'd like to learn, or something like that, something constructive. Appreciate it. Have a great evening. Thanks a lot for participating.
Thank you.
Sure, Rajani. I'm going to give you some of the names of the books to begin with right here. One of the greatest, and I've put a couple of them in the website there. I'm going to name 3 or 4 for you right now, I think. One of them is, here we are. Are you seeing it? Okay, this book by Marilyn J. Adams, I recommend this book strongly. It's about 30 years old, but it's a beautiful book. And it's called Beginning to Read. And in particular for people who want to understand the history of this science of reading and who want to understand the basics of beginning to read, that's a great book. This one is recommended to me. I haven't read it. Diane McGinnis, Early Reading Instruction. Those are both there on the website, on the Google Classroom. Some of these white papers really describe it well. They're a little bit technical and a little bit advanced, but these 2 white papers are absolutely brilliant places to look at starting to understand the science of reading and what the issues are. Then if you look at some of these experts and you look at some, as a matter of fact, if you go to this podcast, this is a brilliant podcast, Science of Reading podcast. And if you look at who she has interviewed here, you're going to find that, like this person here, Maria Murray, she's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and she's a professor at State University of New York in Oswego, and she is a really insightful teacher of how to teach reading. And actually, most of the big experts in the world are here, have been interviewed. There's another one, Dr. Louisa Moats. She has a book called Speech to Text, and it's very good. And there's some other big experts here as well, including this guy, Tim Shanahan. He's got some really interesting podcasts and website and all of that. And then, of course, especially this guy, where is he? I think he's down here somewhere. Mark Seidenberg, where is he? He would have been at the beginning. There he is. Nope, that's Tim Shanahan. Anyway, I put one of his books on there. It's called Reading at the Speed of Sight. But anyway, if you look at this podcast, it's most of the big experts here, okay? So I hope that helps, Rajani, but there's 2 books there already on the website, and you can look at this particular slide where I put the names of some books and some experts. So here you see some of the books I recommend. Marianne Wolf, really interesting books. There's 4 books right there, including the one I just recommended by Mark Siedenberg, and some experts as well. And if you just start at readingrockets.org or at that Science of Reading podcast, you're going to see a lot. Thanks for the question, Rajani. Good.